It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Lou Testoni. Let me give you a little bit about his background, and then we will give him a warm welcome to Armstrong County. Lou is the office managing partner for PricewaterhouseCoopers. He has 33 years with the firm, beginning in Washington, D.C. He transferred to Pittsburgh in late 1984, and then he spent 2 years with PricewaterhouseCoopers at the national office in New York City. He's a leader of our public company practice, serving in categories such as Alcoa, Heinz, U.S. Steel, Carnegie Mellon University. He's been involved in the community, president and elect of the Boy Scouts of Western Pennsylvania, local and national boards for epilepsy foundations, the board at the Carnegie Library. Lou graduated from Providence College in 1971. He is a BS in accounting. Let us give a warm welcome to Mr. Lou Testoni.
Good morning, everybody, and it is a pleasure to be here today. I was actually a little surprised when Bill asked me to do this last time we met, but I think I can see a little bit of relevance that I can bring to the table today, and we're going to try and do that. Let me point out to you, I think these joint responsibility that we share for the development of the workforce of the future is something that's very important. I would like to point out, though, that I have a favorite sort of transition. The next level of responsibility is accountability, and that's when you're looking into each other's eyes across the table, and we take responsibility and accountability for doing what we say we're going to do. And a part of what these kinds of forums are about is putting people across the table, looking into each other's eyes and agreeing that this is an important effort that we're going to embark on, and that we're going to be accountable to each other. And I think a part of what I'm involved in the community is one of the reasons I think I'm here is because I am involved on the Workforce Quality Committee of the Allegheny Conference, and I've been involved with that for probably 3 or 4 years now. I was actually one of the early members, and it sort of had some fits and starts, and I've been a consistent and a passionate advocate for this program. As you know, the vision for that Workforce Development Committee is to basically make sure that we have appropriately trained and well-rounded people that can serve the community's workforce and be available as a pool of people for the workforce that we have. And I will share with you some comments about my own business relative to that, which are consistent with some of the comments already made. The 3 main goals are early childhood development. You've probably heard proficiency by 10. That's basically saying that by the time every 10-year-old should be able to be proficient in math and reading by 2010. The Pittsburgh Regional Contract. That compact is effectively a model after Boston, where the business community, the community at large, parents, educators, and students formed a compact that looked each other in the eye and became accountable for achieving some of the goals and responsibilities that we all agreed we would take on for developing the workforce. And the part that I'm involved in, the third goal, is to build relationships and partnerships with education and business in making sure that we achieve goals 1 and 2. I have been the advocate and actually I'm the initiator of the CEO to CEO breakfast. That's been something we've been doing for the last 18 months. I think Dr. Kerr was at his first breakfast a few weeks ago, is that right? We had a working group of about 4 or 5. It grew to be about 6 superintendents of several of the school districts in the Allegheny Conference region. And the idea was to get business leaders and the superintendents together on a much larger basis. It tends to be a focus on Pittsburgh when we deal with these kinds of issues, and we realize that Pittsburgh is not the only place in town where there's a lot of great education going on. And we actually got a team together, and we talked about how we would find ways to overcome the barriers that we see to accomplishing the vision that we set for ourselves. I would say the early meetings were courtship. I mean, there's been lots of these initiatives where business and educators and the community at large get together and they kind of spit and spurt and they look like they're going to work for a while and then they die. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did is that we had to trust each other. We had to go in here and build some respect and rapport, and we spent the first 4 or 5 meetings doing that. The last meeting was actually a working session. It was a session whereby we agreed as educators and businesses that the report card that we were using to rate how well educators were doing in their schools in bringing our children along in education processes was lacking in relevance, and it was lacking in specificity. And we worked very hard at the last meeting to come up with a program that would consider more factors than we were currently considering in the report card, and would try and align the goals of educators with those of business. And I think what I want to do is bring my comments to focus on the basis of, you know, why these partnerships between business and between educators and the community at large. And when I say the community at large, I mean parents, I mean the not-for-profit organizations, I mean the people who have an interest in making sure that our communities are vibrant, okay? And without a strong workforce and without strong business, our communities do not have the ability to be vibrant. It's as simple as that. So let me get up close and personal. Dr. Carr mentioned that I am the managing partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers. For those of you who don't know what we do, our firm provides auditing, tax, and advisory services, consulting services to the global 500 companies around the world. My office is about 400 people. We hire approximately 70 people per year, from everything from undergrad schools to graduate schools. We also hire from the experience marketplace as well. I'll share with you a few about that. We don't make widgets. I mean, I'm not a manufacturer. What we manufacture is intellectual capital. We hire people with strong intellect, and you'll hear a little bit later on about what we call a balanced scorecard, or a well-rounded individual looks like. And we bring them into a culture that nurtures and develops those people. To effectively take what someone else has already begun to mine in terms of the potential and the opportunity that these young men and women have, and then continue to mine them and gain more potential from these people in serving our clients like Alcoa, like Heinz, like U.S. Steel, like Carnegie Mellon University. These are internationally well-established companies that have a need for people, and they need good advisors, and that's what we do for a living. And PwC, we have 130,000 people around the world. We're in 148 countries, and for the record, we share these people. There are people from Pittsburgh. I have a partner in Japan, I have a partner in Thailand, I have a partner in China, I have a manager on the way to Russia, I have a manager in Germany. And these are not abnormal things. These are happening every day. I've had people from China, I've had people from Germany, I've had people from South America, South Africa in my office who've spent multiple time in our exchanging cultures and getting to know who we are and what we do. And we have doubled in size since 2001. The demand for our services has been dramatic over the last 3 years. And we hired, in the last 3 years, 200 people in Pittsburgh, just in the Pittsburgh office, from college universities, and we hired another 50 people from what we call the experienced hiring market. Despite all that hiring, we did not have enough people. We were not able to get enough people from this community. So what do? We brought in significant, and when I say significant, I'm talking about 10 or 11 people on short-term secondments, with secondment being an exchange program. I had people in here from South Africa, from Australia, from Europe, and from Asia, just to fulfill the basic needs that we had for serving the clients that we have in Pittsburgh. That was still not enough. I actually engaged recruiters, international recruiters that went to English-speaking countries around the world, and we arranged for temporary visas for these people, and we brought them over from places like Ireland and from England and from Italy and from mostly Western Europe to come to Pittsburgh to help us get through the work that we have for our clients. Arranging everything from 2 to 3 year visas to 6-month visas. We significantly, so that was a temporary fix. That was not going to be able to fix our inherent problem here. So what we did is we went back to the drawing board and we thought about what are we going to do to make this a more permanent source of people for Pittsburgh. We expanded our internship programs. 3 years ago, we may have had 3 or 4 interns in our office. We now have 50 interns. As I stand here today, we have 50 interns in our office, and they're coming from college universities like Pitt, like Penn State, like West Virginia University, Duquesne University, Robert Morris, because we believe that that's a good investment in our community. We believe that money that we're putting into those people getting a good experience with us, getting a good opportunity to see what we can do. Because let me ask you a question: how many people in this room knew what an audit firm did before I gave you an explanation? Yeah, to be candid with you, I graduated from high school in 1967, and my counselor, who was a great person, said, you know, you're good in math, you should go become an engineer. I went to engineering school and I promptly flunked out. I didn't even wait very long. I went for first semester right out. And the reality was, it was not consistent with who I was. And someone mentioned to me accounting, didn't even know what they were talking about. And fortunately, I had a good counselor who said, you know, you gotta consider this. You're halfway decent at math. You know, your reading skills don't tend to be all that good, but we could fix that problem too. But I landed on a program because someone took an interest and influenced my decision about something. And frankly, I've been in this business for 33 years, and it is my passion. I like what I do, and I have 400 people that like what they do. Let me give you another observation. In my business, 20% turnover. Turnover means people leaving my business is very common. So think about that. An office of 400 people, that's 70 to 80 people that leave my office every year. Okay? So just think about the opportunity that presents for this community to provide skilled, educated workers to my firm, in addition to what I'm doing for growth. So I have to replace the people that are already there, and I have to grow my business. So if you think about that, the opportunity for people with education in this community is dramatic. And I know I'm only giving you my story. I have a client, okay, who's an industrial client. They will hire over the next 3 years 4,500 people, okay, to replace the people who are retiring. The baby boomers are going to retire. Sooner or later, we're going to retire. And when we retire, my understanding is that by the year 2015, there will be twice as many people leaving the workforce as coming in. And if that doesn't present an opportunity, and by the way, a challenge, I don't know what does. So, the cost of that turnover, right? Just think about that. I brought someone in, I paid them good salaries, I trained them, I helped them understand our culture, I got them familiar with my clients. I did all of that hard work, and then they go someplace else. And why is that? Because my clients can't get enough people either. Okay, so what they do is they hire our people away from us, and that's the turnover. So this is the domino effect of not having enough people in our community to be able to be a pool of people available for the resources. So if that by itself is not enough to justify why these partnerships and what you're doing in this room is very important, let me add one more. I've gone to the CEO breakfasts, and every time I walk away, I have a new book I have to read. And one of the first ones, one of the first meetings I went to, someone told me, "Have you read The World is Flat?" And I had not read the book, and I went and bought it, and it was a pretty daunting book, may I point out. It was way more volume than I'm usually handling. But what I learned from that book, and what I learned from my partners, is that the world is changing very quickly. And so quickly that by the time someone enters high school as a freshman, the technology and the innovation that has taken over in the 4 years it takes for them to get through high school has dramatically changed. And if you think about the next 4 years of someone going to college, the technologies that they might have been available and using when they were a freshman in high school, they're not even present by the time they're graduating college. They're gone. What's that telling us? It tells us that an education process is not a terminal end. It is a continuous process, and that we are looking for, and people need to be available for, being able to be willing to make an investment in their education for the rest of their lives. We'll talk a little bit about that later on, about change agility. That willingness for people to for educators to teach people how to learn for the rest of their lives, and then the investment that people make in learning for the rest of their lives, is what really distinguishes our people, the people that we'll need in the future, from the people that we have today. Because that willingness to be available into the market space in a different form in 3 to 4 years, or 5 to 7 years, is really important and critical part of what we do. So part of what we're doing, I think, and the second thing that's happening is, there are, who's heard the word BRICS? When economic terms, the BRICS. It's a new term. Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And what's happening there is that they want what we want. The problem is they don't have the infrastructure to get what we want, what we have. And so what they're doing is they're making investments in education, undergrad education, and then they're sending their students to the US to attend some of the best college universities in the country. So what's happening is our current high school graduates that want to get into these key schools, they're competing even before they get to the workforce. They're competing to get the key slots and the key schools just to get to college. And I need to tell you, I've brought people from Brazil, India, China, and haven't done anything from Russia yet. We're working on that. I'm sending a person to Russia very shortly so I can get someone back from Russia. These people are very talented, and they're making huge investments in the kinds of things that the commission was talking about this morning. But they're doing it faster and more aggressively than we are, to be candid with you, because they want what we want. So that competitive investment that they're making, and by the way, what they're looking for is to take the home court advantage away from the US in economic development. We have a home court advantage right now. I would say we in Western Europe have a home court advantage. We're rapidly losing that. And it's all because we don't have enough young people who are willing and able to make the kinds of career choices and career investments in education. Now, I'm not trying to put the world's problems on the shoulders of the educators in this room, but the reality is that if we don't turn out people that are the future, iPod developers and the future Microsoft developers, we will lose our economic ability to be successful. So, having said that, another factor that's occurring is that companies like mine, we are hiring the best and brightest. We don't care where they come from. The best and brightest people come from wherever they come from. And we're less willing to hire an average person, even though they're local, because the world's more global. I mean, mobility is no big deal. I've moved 4 times in my career. Now, and I'm a baby boomer. Baby boomers don't usually move that much. Okay? These young people today, they're willing to move anywhere. When I asked a young man in my office, a young married man, were you willing to go to Russia for 3 years? He didn't even talk to his spouse. I said, well, you can't say yes until you talk to your spouse, okay? But the reality here is they're very mobile. And the BRICS, they're very mobile. They're extremely mobile. So I guess the bottom line here is that we can agree that there's lots of valid reasons why what we're doing here is important. I did notice that the title of this event is Developing Excellence in the Workforce. And what I'd like to do is spend a few minutes talking about what that excellence means. What I've done is I've gone to our own, excuse me for a second. In our business, we do a lot of recruiting, and I have professional HR people, but we actually use our partners and managers to do the recruiting because we're looking for people like us, not people like what our HR people tell us we should have. And what we do is we have a set of competencies that we use for evaluating whether or not they're an on-campus hire, an experienced hire, or a graduate hire, graduate school hire. We use the same models, and what I've done is I've tried to take and adapt that to what I believe to be a general framework for what we call the balanced scorecard. There was a time when I remember, frankly, when I was being interviewed on campus back in college, back in the old days, one of the first things they asked you to put on the resume at college was what your grade point average was. Okay, that was the first thing. That's all they cared about. They didn't care about community activities. They didn't care about whether you might have worked, 100% of the time to get through college. All they want to know is GPA. And that's what they made their preliminary cut on. And frankly, I've taught on campus. I've been recruiting for 33 years. I still recruit heavily at Penn State University. I actually sit in the room with these young students. And I've met a lot of 4.0 students who could not talk themselves out of a paper bag. They can't communicate. They can't share the knowledge they have. They're the most brightest and most intelligent people that we have, but they can't communicate. We're not looking for those people. Trust me on this. We have a lot of disappointed people who think that because they have a 4.0, that they automatically get entry into PwC. And by the way, our starting salaries are $40,000 coming out of college. We're pretty, and in 3 to 5 years, if you do perform pretty well, you can be making $70,000 by the time you're 28 years old. Now, those are attractive jobs. And they think that because they have a 4.0 and because they studied their tails off while they were in college, that earns them a right to get a job with us, and it doesn't. Because the balanced scorecard says that it's not good enough, okay, to have great grades. You've got to have a passion for the community, you've got to have the ability to communicate, and you have to be willing to invest in your future. We will help you make investments as a firm through good coaching and through good performance development and good feedback, but you need to make that investment. We need to be able to see that demonstration. And what we do is we use competencies to evaluate that demonstration. So let me share with you a few of them, and let me point out to you, I happen to know that the metrics that we use and the things that we use, it's the same that they use for people who go to shop floors. If you've not been at US Steel and looked at their shop floors and how complicated, trust me, a worker on the US Steel floor, they spend more time at a computer table than I do. They need to have knowledge about tolerances and about scrap yields, and it's unbelievable what they need. So I can tell you that while you may say, well, Lou, this is a you're a professional services firm, you're a high flying. No, I got to tell you, what I did here is I'm giving you what I hear from my clients and what we do as to what they're looking for when they're hiring people for all jobs, not just one. Because I can tell you the GPA thing, it's an okay measure, but it's only one. It's only one measure. This reinvention thing, this is really important. I've reinvented myself. I started out in the firm, I did mostly college universities. It's a very technical skill set from an accounting standpoint. It's called fund accounting. But then I came to Pittsburgh, and guess what? They do a lot of mining here, okay? And I knew nothing about it. I didn't even know what a coal mine was. And so I had to go learn on my own, go learn a new industry. And how did I learn it? Well, I went down into the mines and I checked out what it's like underground, and I went and looked at some strip mines, and I made an investment in mine reinvention, and I became pretty good at it. Actually, one of my skill sets is I do have a national reputation for knowing the mining industry. Continuous learning and sharing, I've already given you about that, but let me tell you what the most important, another people don't like criticism. Okay? They don't want to be constructively criticized. I don't know why that is, because that's how you grow and develop. In our firm, we have 360-degree criticism. Okay? As the managing partner, I have young people who are able to just blindly, write an evaluation on my performance. This is brand new people. It's open to anybody. I have the right, if I want to, as the OMP, I can write an evaluation or give some feedback in a blind way. I have no idea who's doing it on how well I'm doing as a leader in the office, or how well someone else is doing it. And we somehow figure out a way to get rid of the people who just want to get even. We figure out how to take care of that. But people who are not willing to take constructive criticism in a positive way and act on it, okay, not defensively, but positively, that's not something that we're looking for. And I would say to you, that's a very important part of being willing to be innovative and uncomfortable. Trust me, when I've got a young person sitting in front of me and saying, gee, Lou, you did okay there, but there's a couple of things you could have made that would have been more relevant to me. I say, okay, I might not agree with all of it, but I welcome the feedback. And that openness and willingness to take that feedback is critical for our success. And by the way, I grow. I mean, there's nothing more powerful than having 50 or 60 brand new, bushy-eyed, bright tails, entry-level people coming in from the colleges to spark up the energy in the office, okay? And they want to make a contribution, and they want to be heard. And we do a pretty good job of listening, and some of it's can be difficult. Courage and integrity. This is a tough world, and the competitiveness makes it very difficult for us to be comfortable. And that means you need to have the integrity to do the right thing and the courage to do it. And a lot of what we evaluate, particularly in our business, because we are auditors, we're giving independent opinions on company financial statements. If you get the CEO from, Alcoa yelling at you, that's a pretty big deal. You can get pretty intimidated by that, okay? And these are young people who get yelled at. And if they're not willing to stand their ground when they know they're right, okay, which is another key element, knowing you're right, then we really can't afford to have it. Because if you're willing to buckle, you're willing to do the wrong thing, and we can't afford that. The cost of that from a litigation standpoint and from a reputational standpoint is just not something we're willing to live with. So we look for people who are willing to have a conflict and somehow dissipate the negativeness that comes out of that conflict. In other words, this is someone who can go in, have a conflict, and have the relationship better when it comes out the other side. That's a challenge. That's an important skill that we talk about a lot with our young people. This is the argument with my spouse, okay, that instead of us, not talking to each other for the next 3 hours, right, I somehow figure out a way that we're talking the next minute. That's challenging. And we do that every day in our business. And people on shop floors, leaders on shop floors, do that every day. Conflict is part of business. And to have the ongoing willingness of people to enter a conflict and come out better in the relationship, that's a commitment that everybody makes to the workforce, and it makes it to the company. Acquiring and applying technical expertise. You'll notice, by the way, I'm only now getting to technical expertise. Okay, I'm not putting these things necessarily priority. I'm telling you, this is sort of like, yeah, it's here, but it's probably different than what you think. It's talking about taking technical skills and applying them in a practical manner. And again, I'm going to go back to my story about the 4.0. I've met lots of 4.0s who, they can take, advanced accounting and they can rattle them off. They can rattle off the pronouncements and the FASBs just like that. I said, but can you help a client figure out how to do this? Because no two situations are exactly the same. That's why they pay us the big bucks. They want us to apply judgment, common sense. Having technical knowledge is only the first step in solving problems. The next step is being able to have practical applications that make business sense and will advance a company's goals and objectives. So I caution you, if you haven't focused on the importance of being sort of realistic and practical about, I suppose there's some really great ideas. I suppose, the guys who developed Microsoft, Word probably had some grandiose idea that probably only half worked, okay? And reality is that the half worked is still a pretty big innovation. The reality is that someone had a grandiose idea and then got practical about it. And that's how Microsoft and iPod came along. The practical application of it. That's what we're looking for. Managing projects and economics. Our business, I run an office of 400 people, it's about $100 million. Do you think I personally run all $100 million of that? Do you think I'm following my 400 employees around the office all day long? Or around their clients? Not possible. So I have to trust my people, okay, and train them and coach them and develop them to make sure that they know how to project manage. And what does that mean? It means effectively prioritizing, effectively taking complex projects and breaking them down into manageable, schedulable, and delegatable tasks. That's not something that a lot of people have a skill at. Taking a complex task, I've watched, I used to, when I was a young person, I actually worked with a fellow that built race cars. And I know a little bit about engines. And I remember he had this very organized approach on how to take a complex thing like an engine, break it down, and put it back together again as if it was no big deal. But that's because he broke it down into tasks. He had sort of this game plan that he had and how he was going to lay things out, and he knew exactly where stuff was. And when he had to put it back again, he scheduled his time around that, and scheduled my time around that, as a matter of fact. So the reality here is we're looking for people that know how to run a business and know how to contribute to a business, even though they might just be on the shop floor, or they might be the executive of the organization. I can tell you, I have partners who've been in the business for 30 years. I look at them and scratch my head and say, how the heck did they do that? Because the most complex projects can seem so simple. And that's a skill that we're looking for that is basically about finding solutions to the day-to-day complex problems that I personally cannot solve. Yet they arise every day. Building and sustaining relationships. I mentioned this already, but we have relationships that are multi-dimensional. I'm in the client service business, obviously relationships are very important there, right? Because we do have conflict, it's challenging. But the more important thing is our relationships as leaders and as members of a community go beyond just our clients. They go to the community.